Hi, and welcome to this 4NAV coffee break. My name is Peter Vennevetlo, and I'm a product specialist at 4NAV, and I will be your presenter today. As this coffee break is live, you can ask your questions via the GoToWebinar question window. We'll answer them at the end of the coffee break. Now for real. In this video, we will set up a sales invoice so that it will display a prepaid, for real. In this video, we will set up a sales invoice so that it will display a prepaid amount in a pleasing manner. The default 4NAV sales invoice will display all the lines in an invoice, including the general ledger lines for the prepayment. And this can be confusing. I want to hide that general ledger line, but then my subtotal amount is wrong, and they know that no longer adds up. So I want to fix that too. And finally, I will actually have to show somewhere that a certain amount has been prepaid. Otherwise, the customer might pay the whole sum or might be confused about the calculation. I will demonstrate how to set up a prepayment invoice for Business Central in 4 steps. Step 1, prerequisites. What do I need to get going? In step 2, I am going to set up the JavaScript variables to keep track of certain values. In step 3, I will edit the line section of the sales invoice layout to display the correct lines and totals. And in step 4, I will make a conditional text box to display when an amount has been prepaid, and I will set it up to dynamically display that amount. For today's presentation, I am using a Business Central Docker environment with the Business Central 2023 Wave 1 release. I have installed the Universal Code 4NAV Customizable Report Pack extension version 7.1, and I've executed the step-by-step wizard from the assisted setup to get started. Of course, everything I do today is also possible on the 4NAV Customizable Report Pack extension for Business Central Cloud. I also have the 4NAV Designer installed on my PC. The 4NAV Designer can be downloaded from the 4NAV website. To show you what I want to change about my posted sales invoice, I will first show you the default 4NAV sales invoice. I have an invoice prepared. I can print it out, and it will give me the default 4NAV invoice. Now, as you can see, the lines are explicitly shown. The item line itself and the general ledger entry is here. The subtotal is shown as £500, and the VAT is shown as 2 separate lines. I don't like this general ledger line, so I want to hide it. I don't want to show it. But if I hide this line, the subtotal amount will be wrong, because then I only have this 1,000 line and the subtotal would be 500. So I'll need to correct that. But if the subtotal amount is corrected, then I will need to show that a prepaid amount is subtracted. Otherwise, the final total amount is not properly accounted. Because if I change this final total too, then people would pay me the wrong amount of money. So I don't want to change that at all. These VAT lines, they are hard-coded to count positive and negative lines separately. So there's not much I can do about that. But besides never simply showing them in the 4NAV setup in Business Central. Now, first things first, let's set up these JavaScript variables. To do this, I have opened the sales invoice layout in my designer. I have to keep track of 2 different amounts separately. I have to take care of line amounts for normal line items and line amounts for general ledger entries. To do that, I will set up a JavaScript variable in the onPre data item of the line data. onPre data item of the line data item. So just this block where the body of the invoice is. This will open the JavaScript editor, and I am just going to copy paste because I'm going to type a lot. So what this does is it sets a variable for AMT, which is set to 0. This will be the amount variable for the AMT PBT, This is the prepayment amount, which I've also set to 0. Then there are two variables, one to keep track of whether any given line is a prepayment line, PPT line, which I have set to a Boolean false, and then one which will keep track of whether the entire invoice has some prepayment element, which I've also set to a Boolean false. So I click OK. For the moment, these variables have no variable value aside from what we set them as. So let's add a function. We will add a function to the onAfterGetRecord trigger, onAfterGetRecord, in the line data item. So it opens a JavaScript editor, because that way it will trigger after each record is loaded. And I will copy in my first line. To decide what to do about the PPT line, the prepayment line. What is a prepayment line? A prepayment line is a line where the total amount is less than 0 and the line type is a general ledger account. So if the amount is less than 0 and the type is a general ledger account, it will go into the variable, or it will get the PPT line to be true. Right, so what can we do with this? I will add the next function. I will copy paste again. So if it's not a prepayment line, then the line amount will be added to the AMT variable. And if not, then the invoice has PPT variable will be set to true, and the line amount will be added to the prepayment amount variable. So if it's not prepayment, it will be added to the normal amount, and if it is a prepayment, it will be added to the prepayment amount. And the invoice itself will get the has prepayment true, while the variable will get the value has prepayment true. So I click OK, and we've set up our variables. All right, now that we've set up these variables, let's put those to use. And I can do this again in the designer. First, I want to edit the lines body section. So I will unplug the lines body section from the master report. And what can I do with this? Well, I want to hide it when it's a prepayment line. So I will set show output to only show if it's not, exclamation mark, a prepayment line. And it's as simple as that. And now it will hide the line if it's a prepayment line, and it will show if it's not a prepayment line. I will also want to change the amounts in the trans header and the trans footer sections. So I will unplug those as well. And also in the lines footer section, I will set these running amounts. I will change the source expression to simply AMT. We'll only keep track of the real line amounts. And I will make them a nice misty rose. Ooh, misty rose there. I also want to have, which is here, another box, as I promised. because I wanted to show somewhere that there was a discount, a certain amount prepayment. Which will also make Misty Rose. And I will give it a nice caption, just some string for the moment. Just like prepaid amount, just like that. Okay. And let's see what that's done. So save as custom label. And we will try to print this again. Preview. Let's see. It's hidden the extra line, the general ledger line. The subtotal is now 1,000. The prepaid amount is set to 500. And then it will calculate the VAT as normal. So this works. Now, for completeness sake, I also want a nice Misty Rose text box that reminds people when an invoice has had an amount prepaid and also what that amount was. So like here, £500 excluding VAT of this invoice has been prepaid. I will do this in the designer. I will add a text box right here, make it nice and big. And I will give it a source expression, which I've already typed up. So this one. So it will give me the currency code space the amount prepaid plus this string of text. Now, remember that the amount PPT, the prepayment amount, is a negative value because it's subtracted from the invoice. And in this case, I think it's confusing. So I have put a minus in front of it, and now it should be positive. Okay. I will set the show output. I only want it to show when the invoice has a prepayment. And I don't always want a Misty Rose a rectangle in my invoice. I only want a Misty Rose a rectangle when there actually is something there, which I don't need to really trigger. I can just say on print. So when it gets printed, I want cur control back color to equal Misty Rose. I click OK. So make it bold, make it big. So now, if there is something there, I'll also make it multi-line because I'm afraid it may otherwise not fit. Multi-line there. If it works all right, it shouldn't show when there isn't something, and it should show when there is something, and it should be Misty Rose when there is. So I will just preview this for this entire list of invoices. This is just a regular old invoice, 2 lines, no prepayment, and it doesn't show the text box, and it doesn't show prepaid amount. And again, normal invoice, no prepaid amount, no text box. Then the prepayment amount itself, the prepayment invoice itself, which obviously does show a line because it's more than 0, which is all right because we do want their prepayment invoices, the first prepayment invoices, to obviously have lines. And it does show, and it doesn't show a prepayment line, and it doesn't show a box. And the last one, moment of truth, it does show the box, the text. It doesn't show the prepayment line or the general ledger line. It shows the correct subtotal and the correct prepaid amount. So it works perfectly. So let's recap what we just did. I wanted to hide the prepayment lines in my sales invoices, and I wanted my total amounts to only reflect visible lines. To do this, I set up some JavaScript variables to store amounts and to keep track of whether individual lines and the invoice as a whole does or does not have a prepayment. Then I use these variables to show or hide lines in the invoice and to show different amounts in the lines footer section. Finally, we added a conditional text box that dynamically shows how much was already paid when there is a prepayment. Thank you for listening to me so far. I'm going to check if we have any questions. Doesn't look like it. Well, since we have no questions at the moment, I will wrap up this coffee break. If you want to know more about 4nav, or if you want to download the 4nav Designer and Converter, please visit our website. If you want to install 4nav in Business Central Cloud, please visit the Microsoft App Stores. You can watch more videos about 4nav on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/4navreports. And if you have any questions about 4nav, please email them to support@4nav.com. For a full list of upcoming and recorded coffee breaks, please visit 4nav.com/coffeebreaks. There are still no questions, I think. So thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.